Welcome back to Real Estate Ramblings. I'm Amy Shrader with Remax Real Estate 10.
Michelle Hodges.
Ashley Hunt.
All right, ladies. It seems like you weren't here the last time. You
Nope.
just had a grandbaby.
Yes.
So tell us all
Congratulations.
about him.
He's getting big, done really well. He ended up going to Kentucky to be born, so I was kind of iffy on that. So her dad wears the Kentucky and my husband wears the Tennessee, so we had to make sure we took a picture, but he's doing well, so we're good.
All right, good deal. And what was his name?
Kyler.
Kyler.
Yeah.
She continued with that K theme you had
Yeah.
working.
She did. Her dad's name was Kyle, so she just added the R.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so what are y'all seeing here in the real estate market the past few weeks?
I'm seeing a lot of buyers interested again. I've had, just a lot of folks coming out of the woodwork right now looking for homes. You can tell it's spring. Everybody's starting to look. So I'll be glad when I think the inventory matches the folks that are out there now, because it's a good time. If you're looking to list, we've got buyers prowling. So,
Yes.
Are most of your buyers local, or are they moving here from somewhere else?
no, I've got several that are local right now, which, again, I'm thrilled about, because that's been the one thing that we've talked about from the beginning is how much I wanted to work in the local market. And, just seeing the local market start to re-engage to me is super. I'm excited about it. The ones I have right now are.
Right.
Mine have been locals here lately too. At least in the past week, it's flipped. Week before last, I kind of had more out of state. Now I've got more locals, but the sunshine's definitely brought them out, so it's been nice. But still struggling on that inventory. So we need more listings, guys.
It kind of depends on what people are looking for, because we've had 91 new homes come on the market just in Hamlin County
Right.
since the beginning of the year. And, of course, I get that it plays on what people are looking
Mhm.
for and their budget, because not all the homes that are coming on the market are,
253, right.
I'm still noticing 250 to 300 is my range right now for the majority of people. What about
Yeah.
you?
I think mine are falling between 3 and 4. But so what I'm seeing right now is really some of the inventory that's coming out between 3 and 4. I think is, a lot of it has still got some inspection issues here and there, and still seeing some of those things, which would kind of surprise you. Buy a house at that price point,
Well, but we have to think a $300,000 to $400,000 house now
absolutely
would have been what, 150 to 200 before
100
COVID.
100% agree. But that's where we are now. You go out to
Right.
look at, a $380,000 home, and you're really quite surprised at some of the things that still need to be done in this home.
Especially the mentality of our buyers, because they go in thinking that these homes are, $500,000 homes in their mind, because the market has changed and
Right.
their market has not changed in their head.
And it is, even for me, it's tough to look at sometimes when I'm trying to work with a buyer who I know, again, you're in the Morristown market, they've been out of it for some time. These folks are finally starting to re-engage at a higher price point, but then the quality of the homes isn't the same as it was when they last looked. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a wake-up call. So we're, I think it's just going to take, again, I think once the market comes in bloom on the inventory as well, then we may see some of that balance out a little bit, I think. But right now, you do see a lot of folks just jumping out there, and there's just things. I think there's, like you said, there's just such a difference in the homes at $350 now and homes at $350, 5 years ago.
Right.
So,
I know I had somebody that's a friend on Facebook. I think we went to high school together or something. And he was talking about he had bought his home, I want to say in the early 2000s, and said how much he'd paid for it or whatever. And he said, I went online to one of those websites and was just pulling up homes for sale. And he was like, I was in shell shock. And so, we think that everybody knows the real estate market has
Right.
changed
Yeah.
since
Right.
COVID.
But they don't.
Because we talk about it, we
Mhm.
live it every single day. But average Joe, if they're not in the market to buy or sell,
Mhm.
they're not tuning into all that
Right.
news. And so I just thought it was funny because then, of course, everybody jumps on the bandwagon and they talk about, oh, yeah, it's them realtors driving the price up. We don't set the price. The buyer sets the price when they buy the house. So,
Right.
you know, we always get made out to be the bad guy.
But you have to do what's right for your, I mean, again, your job is to follow the market and do the best you can for your seller because they got to turn around and buy in that same market. I mean, so the market drives it. It's not like, you know, we go, oh, let's see what we can do to somebody here.
Yeah.
You know, it's just part of it. But you're 100% right because, again, the Morristown market hasn't been active in
a lot
real
of people
estate.
that live here have.
Absolutely. And so now that some of them, I think, you know, in those medium price levels, they're a little bit shocked at what they're seeing now because 5 years ago, the thoughts of buying a $300,000 home was
Oh, yeah, you were buying the
outrageous.
top of the
Yeah,
line.
absolutely. They were like, no, I don't need all that. Now,
It's like I'm getting
it's standard.
I'm getting a lot of people that's coming to me now for land, and they're kind of like, they start out with land, and then they're like, well, price per square foot of building has went up, which it's not as drastic as it was a year ago, I guess, but it's still up there. And they'll be like, well, I can buy a house, you know, $180 a square foot or $190 a square foot, somewhere around there. And then it's costing me $250 to $300 to build at this point, depending on, you know, how defined they get on their building. But a lot of people are starting to steer back to buying a used home again.
I agree.
So.
Yeah, once you give people like 2 or 3 names of builders to contact, I think a lot of them flip their script real quick because I know, you know, if you're talking about like out in the lake subdivisions, you've got 2 or 3 builders who are usually the ones that are building in those areas. And, you know, when you're quoting somebody $350 to $400 a square foot, even if it's just a 1,400 square foot minimum, they're like, holy cow, you know? So, yeah, it definitely plays a part into it.
Yep, it does.
For sure. And I've noticed, like, right now in Hamlin County, we've got 7 homes that are over $1 million active and available right now. Probably active and available for quite a while, but to me, I think the shocking thing of that is that we have 7 that are on the market, but also they're not lake homes. Like maybe 1 of them, 2 of them are lake homes, but I know we've got a farm on the market right now priced at $2.5 million, and I'm like, wow, I don't know where that's going to go, but
A lot of people just don't have the money to afford it. I mean, usually when they're doing it, it's the lake homes that they're trying to after when it's $1 million. The majority that I deal with, anyways. I don't know. It's interesting to see.
It is. It is, and I always say, you know, when I started selling in Hamlin County, our average sales price was $135. So we have more than doubled that because we're over 300 now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, I think a lot of people have maybe heard, you know, that real estate's gone up, and so they're like, they call you, hey, I want to see what I can get for my house. And I think some people do still have unrealistic expectations.
I agree. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of realtors that won't tell them the truth either when they're talking to them. I think
there's a lot of realtors who don't know how to tell them
agreed.
what their home is worth. Like we had so many people, and I'm not slamming you all because I know you've been trained and I know you know what you're doing, but so many people got into real estate when the going was good, and you didn't have to worry about how to price a home. You just kind of threw it on the market for whatever. And it would sell.
Stick.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think a lot of agents out there don't know how to do a CMA. They don't know how to accurately tell somebody this is what your home is worth. So
I had this discussion over the weekend. I have a client that lives out of state, purchased some land here, mountainside land, from Rogersville. And of course, I know that area, you know, like the back of my hand. And I'm like, this land over here, a lot of foreigners will buy it, people that here that, you know, own stores and stuff, and they'll buy it thinking that it's, you know, going to help them just to own property and reinvest. And that's what this person done, thought they was reinvesting in it, but they bought it back in 2021, and now it's like, or 2022, and now they're like top of the market, and I'm like, you kind of paid top of the market. I really don't even know that you will get your money back at this point, because it's mountainside land, and they bought a right of way to it, so therefore it's kind of like, well, we'll see. I'm guessing around $3,000 to $4,000 an acre, because it's nothing but a mountainside. It's just hunting land.
Yeah, and I remember back in my United Country days working over there with Lisa and Joey, that's what we sold. You know, that's the kind of properties that they listed, that we had buyers for. And you'd have people who wanted remote.
Yeah.
And that's what always cracked me up.
Yeah.
They're like, we want remote. We don't want to, you know, that. But then, so you take them to Sneedville. And it was, well, how long does it take to get to Walmart?
Yeah.
Well, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on where you go. And, oh, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, you're not going to be remote.
Not really
then.
remote.
Right.
You know, Walmart's like a Dollar General. You're going to have one right around the corner, so to speak. Yeah. But, like, we couldn't give a lot of that land away back then. And it would be priced at, you know, $800 to $1,000 an acre. But then all of a sudden, all that got bought up. And now it's starting to come back on the market because people are like, yeah, I ain't never going to use that.
Well, had told me it had several building spots on it.
You're like, no,
I can't find none. And I know that land very well. And I'm like, I even went back over there. I'm like, maybe I'm just not thinking of the exact same parcel. No, there's none.
You're like,
It's
no,
mountainside.
No, it was,
yeah.
that
You've
was
not
it.
seen it in person. It's mountainside.
Right.
So,
the goats are hanging out.
they'll be lucky to hang out on this mountainside. It's that safe.
I don't know. I've seen cows on
They can
a
stand
hillside that I would have been like, I would never expect a cow to be up on that thing.
Just look like they're going to tumble on over.
Yeah. And they're just chilling, looking at you. So are you all getting any lakefront buyers that are coming in right now?
I have not had as many, surprisingly. I figured I would, but I have not. Not for me, anyways.
A few, Pepper, and not as many right now either. I had, and usually it's somebody like, I did have somebody last week who was interested in the Sequoia house, which was under contract now. So I reached out to them, and that never heard back.
Well, and I think a lot of people may be waiting on the lake to come up.
Sure. That's what I'm thinking.
Like we go through that period of time. But it's funny to me how the homes getting showed are falling into a cycle. You know, it's like I'll have a property on the market for 2 months, might get a showing here or there. Then all of a sudden I've got 5 showings on it in a week and we'll get 2 offers. You know what I'm saying? And people are like, really? It's been on the market for 60 days and now you've got enough.
It happens.
It happens more often than you would think.
Right.
And it's like, it's crazy.
When you have the buyers on that end, they're like, there is no way. They think that seller is lying.
I know they do. And, you know, I've been in that situation too where you're like, sure you
Bet.
do. I bet you got another buyer. But I have it happen on my end, so I have to believe that it is happening out there.
Right.
That's true.
And I've got a couple of lakefront people that are looking to sell. And I've just said, you know, at this point I would hang tight until like the middle of April, 1st of May. Let's get the lake up.
And the buyers out.
And go from there.
Because they're really, I think they are waiting on it to warm up to come and look at those lake properties. So,
well, and I think that people are getting turned off by the continual upping of price.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was very uncommon to have lake properties over $1 million, even 5 years ago. And now, it seems like everything comes on. You know, people are like, well, my neighbor down the street sold his for $1 million. Well, he was on the main channel and you're on a code, buddy.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get it.
So, yeah, I think that's going to affect the lake market more than anything this year is the price.
Right.
Because it's hard to find
A lot of them are outdated too, because it's the elderlies that usually tend to own them or can, have bought them back and then and
or had them built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are outdated and they're getting a updated price nowadays. So a lot of people are expecting that $1 million home to be super fancy, but it's not.
Oh
always the
yeah,
case.
because you know,
$1 million
if I'm
is
gonna
a
pay
lot.
$1 million, I want the best.
Right.
And what you have to explain is you're getting the best land.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You've got to focus more on the lot and its location on the lake, as opposed to sometimes what the interior is. Because somebody can redo the interior, make it anything you want, but you can't change where it's at on the lake.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like it's
So,
definitely important.
so what do you all think most people are looking for when you're taking them out looking for a house? What are the features of the house that they want? I mean,
Kitchen, master bath, mostly. Size has been pretty good thing for me here lately. Is people's like these rooms. I have so many people that are like, my furniture won't fit. I can't buy this house, but they're so in love with the house. I don't want to downsize my bed, and I'm always like, my couch won't fit in this living room. I want this house so bad, but I've got that wraparound couch and it's not going to fit. And I'm like, okay.
okay.
I'm seeing a lot of I mean, the open concept, I think, is a big deal for folks right now. I think.
Really? Because I'm seeing more people go away from that.
See, I'm not. I'm seeing folks go, no, I want it to be open. I mean, the buyers that I'm working with pretty much right now it's just been a must for them. So, you know, and I'm seeing that my buyers are wanting a little bit of land. And, you know, of course, I'm working with the other, you know, the one buyer who is, she's a great buyer, but she's a single mom. And so her biggest thing is knowing that she's moving into a home that's stable and she's not going to have to put a fortune into once she gets into it. So trying to find that balance between the purchase price and the quality of the home, I think, is another part of that. But as far as just the features, I'm seeing a lot of folks just, they don't want to build because they are seeing that it's more expensive to build right now. So they're looking for those homes with land. And again, I'm seeing more folks with open. Those are the two big things that I'm getting.
I see a lot more people that are looking for land turn to double wides now. They're just like,
well, and here's
it's a
the
cheaper way to
thing.
go.
It is. I mean, if I look at a newer manufactured home versus some of the new construction homes done by, you know, mass builders, I think I'd rather stay in that manufactured home.
Yeah,
you know what I
because,
mean?
I mean, right now they're 155 to 170 a square foot, so they're still looking at them being cheaper than their average home right now, and I get it.
And
Well, yeah, it's
taken
brand
care of.
new.
Yeah.
And the manufactured home goes through a lot more quality control testing than a stick built home will.
And they're gaining equity a lot now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
You
yeah.
get that. I think that's what a lot of people thought in the past is, oh, well, it's a manufactured home and, you know, it's going to lose value and blah. And that's not really how I see it working right now.
It's not. I mean,
it's, you know, I mean,
They're standing firm.
They're standing firm. They're holding their value. They're, you know, I sold a manufactured home. Let's see, it was built in 1996, completely regutted, redone on an acre of land for $300,000. Did just fine on the appraisal. We did but of course, again, it was, you know, on a permanent foundation, and really it's just been turned into a home. Again, it's growing its equity.
Have you noticed so many people now don't realize, though, that the permanent foundation doesn't necessarily mean the center block underneath it?
Sure.
A lot of people don't realize that, you know, just the
It's
underpinning and how it's
pinned down.
strapped
Yeah.
and all that.
So, but yeah, I totally agree.
and you
it's
might be
not-
from the South if you've ever argued with someone over the permanence of a mobile home foundation.
Right.
I remember my first mobile home to go show, very first property I had to show when I started real estate. My mind was, you know, either concrete or, you know, center block, something underneath it. And I was like, this is not on a permanent foundation. Yeah, I learned my own valuable lessons. So now, make sure whenever I see it's a new agent going out, and like, you know, it's about the strapping. And now they pretty much put on permanent foundation. When Clayton's or anybody just sets them up, they're automatically, so they're good.
Yeah, you just have to look more at the older mobile homes
Yeah.
that have been out there for a while to see
How they were fixed,
Yeah.
strapped.
how they were tied down or whatever. But I know I listed, and it was pretty much like a brand new manufactured home on an acre over in Rogersville. And I want to say it was like in 2020. And so things hadn't quite exploded yet, but, you know, we were staying pretty busy. And so I remember walking into that home and I looked around, and if I hadn't have known it was a manufactured home, I wouldn't have known I was in a manufactured home. It looked like something from HGTV with the granite countertops and the white shaker cabinets and just, I mean, a gorgeous little house.
Seamless walls with
without the little things.
Yes.
And, you know, other than like the big seam in the floor where they put the two parts together.
Right.
And then they had transitioned the ceiling very well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, these people, unfortunately, we're getting divorced. So it was like, we've got to sell. I said, well, we can try it at $150. And again, this was in 2020. I said, we can try it at $150, but like, I just don't know. I think that thing sold within a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was high at the time for a manufactured
Right.
home. But when people can walk in and it's like, you know, the angels come out singing
Right.
because the home is so pretty, I think people are looking at that and saying, well, why not? Because used to it was a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think if we go back to what are folks looking for, I think that's another really good point that I just thought about when you said that. I think it used to be the aesthetics of the home maybe didn't matter that much to the value of the home. I think that's flipped a little bit now, and I think people, it don't matter about the structure. They want a move-in ready house now, you know, at the price points that they're paying. And they don't want to have to go in at a 380 and then stick another 50 grand in it to try to, you know, update it as you were talking about.
Unless investing that $50K makes it
still
worth
absolutely
a lot more.
Right, and you can still hold your value in it. But that's what's happening a lot is that it's priced at its max value then, and then you think about sticking another 50 grand in it, and you know good and well at that point if you have to resell it in a year, you're upside down on it. You can't regain it. So, but just going back to that, I do think the aesthetics are mattering far more to buyers right now than maybe what they have in the past. Everybody it was okay to put that elbow grease in, and I just think a lot of folks aren't willing to do that at the price points they're paying.
Right.
And lumber and stuff may start affecting that, especially if our tariffs hit it. So
Exactly. If the tariff to Canada goes in, that could definitely affect the construction cost around here.
yes.
I think we ran into that issue about the aesthetics of the home mattering more last year because we had a couple of sellers that, you know, due to selling it for an estate or whatever,
Right.
you know, they have to go get an appraisal done just to have kind of a mark, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so, you know, the two instances I'm thinking of, both homes needed some love, you know. One of them was a really good house in a good neighborhood, but it was 20 years out of date, you know what I'm saying? And they went in and did a few things here and there, but their appraisal come in for $25,000 more than what I wanted to price it at.
Right.
Because of the aesthetics, you know what I'm saying? People come in and they see that maroon carpet and that hunter green carpet and the wallpaper or the border, and they're thinking dollar signs to get rid of that.
Absolutely.
And trying to explain to a seller, I understand your home appraised for this, but.
Absolutely.
Paneling walls.
You still got to get a buyer who's willing to take that on.
Right.
And like you said, once you put that money in, whether it's $25,000, $10,000, nobody wants to be upside down on it. So.
Right. Yeah, and then you had one that was a cute little house, a great starter home.
Absolutely.
But it needed a little love on the inside, and it was hard talking that seller down to where we wanted to price it initially anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the biggest wake-up call to people looking for land? I know we've talked about construction cost.
Well, the price per acre varies so much.
Yeah.
people will be like, well, why is this one, a few $1,000s an acre, and then you've got the lake lot that's 100, 150 to 250. And they're all over especially lake lots, they're all over the place. For an acre, I mean, it just depends on really what the seller's really wanting to price it at this point, because I think it's just kind of, some of them are so far-fetched that I'm like, no way they'll get that, and then they're
Maybe
under
they
contract.
do some.
Mm-hmm.
But people have to realize that, like on a lake lot, you can't look at what the price per acre is,
No.
in all
Right.
reality of it. And especially if somebody's looking on Douglas Lake, it cracks me up. Somebody's like, well, I saw a 10-acre lot over on Douglas Lake. And I mean, that would be awesome to have 10 acres at the lake and the privacy. And I'm like, yeah, there's an acre above the water.
And 9 acres.
And 9 acres under.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you talking about? And, having to go through and explain that whole thing. Or you've got people who are like, well, I want to be in a lake subdivision, but I don't want well and septic. But they only want to build like a 1,600 square foot house.
I think that's
Pick your struggle, buddy,
Yeah.
because we can't do both.
And I do see that as you were talking about the wake up calls for people, and we're talking about folks that are looking to move into the area, and they want rural land, and they want to be off the grid. They want all of those things, but then they want public water. And public sewer back in some of these places. And here's what I'd say: get on the phone and talk to a realtor before you make a trip in to look at some of those things. Because I mean, I have folks that were absolutely adamant that they wanted to go out in Hancock County and buy land, and couldn't understand why they couldn't have city water there. And I'm like, if you're in these rural areas now,
It's like a 2-mile block in
Right,
Sneedville
and-
that has city water.
right, and you're going to find that if you're in the county and the majority of our surrounding area. Now Hamlin County is a little bit different, and Jefferson County is a little bit different. But now the surrounding counties, if you're in the county, you're going to have a well and you're going to have septic. I mean, that's just part of it. So,
Yeah, I actually had a buyer who was a referral to me from another agent, and her brother were going to move down here. And so we got on a phone call to talk about, all the things that they were looking for in a house. And she had 2 particular cities in mind that she wanted to be in. Morristown was one of them. But she was very adamant she could not have a septic. She had to have a sewer. And she wanted natural gas. She didn't want propane. And they wanted, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, and not a lot of stairs, and just, I mean, she narrowed me down
So
to the point
specific.
that I was like, I got one.
right.
Okay, I got one house that I can show you. Maybe another one, but it's going to be a stretch for your price. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I'll be darned if that one house didn't come off the market yesterday because the seller decided not to sell. She was supposed to come in Tuesday.
Oh,
So I emailed her and I'm like, yeah, that house isn't on the market anymore. So they've canceled their trip, and I'm like, I tried to talk to him about the fact that, like, when you narrow me down that much, it's like looking for the needle in the haystack, and it's not going to come up very often. And if you're out of town, it's probably going to go under contract before you get down here to see it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I've had a few like that. You got to lasso them into what reality is here. I mean, a lot of them see what it is where they're from, and it's completely opposite here.
Yeah, I went on a listing appointment last week over in Brentwood, and so the guy has this time frame in his head because he's purchasing a home somewhere else, but that seller can't be out until June the 1st for whatever reason. So, he's like, well, I'm thinking if we put it on at the beginning of April, that'll give us time, to have it on the market, get under contract, and then, have 30 days to close. And I went, yeah, no. He was like, what do you mean? I said, well, the average time on the market in Hamlin County is 18 days right now. I thought the man was going to have a heart attack right there. And he was like, are you kidding me? I said, no. I said, so we don't need to put it on the market until closer to the beginning of May, because otherwise the closing date
Right.
could be an issue, Plus, he bought the home I think is a new construction back in the 70s. And when I told him what I could sell it for, he was like, what? Shell shocked. Again, not keeping up with the market.
Right. And most of them are pleasantly surprised. You know,
Oh,
when
yeah.
they first hear all that. And then, of course, like you said, then they go and check out other houses and they go, oh, yeah.
Well, and he's moving closer to his children who live 6 hours from here. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, that's the bad part of it, I guess.
Mhm.
Which it's like, you know, last week there was a house come up for sale in my subdivision. And I was like, it was quite a bit more than any other home in that subdivision has sold for. And I'm like, let me see this. But most of the houses in my subdivision were built late 60s, early 70s. This was built in the early 2000s, which is kind of weird, but whatever. Well, it's got an in-ground heated pool. It's got this huge kitchen. It has a butler's pantry. And, you know, I'm salivating at the mouth now. And Marty's like, you just need to get off of that listing because you know you ain't going to buy that house. And I said, I know, because I don't want to give up my 3% interest rate.
Who wasn't for that,
Same,
though?
girl, same.
Yeah.
Same.
I mean, I was like, I would have never in my life thought that I would buy a house priced at that, but that house was like I was drooling. It wasn't
But
fun.
how often would you use that pool?
With Venus, probably every night
Venus?
when I got home from
How
work.
often would you?
Oh.
None.
Well, I'd have to be in it with her.
Yeah.
I think you'd enjoy it more than you think.
Oh, I would love it.
But would she have time?
Because it's heated.
Also, I mean, you would still have time and, you know, on your
I mean,
Sundays,
seriously, of the
your
evenings.
family and your Sundays and the times
Yeah.
that, listen, I love a pool. I mean, and a pool is not really an investment in your home. It's an investment in your family.
That's true.
And
your health.
And your health. I mean, all of those things. But it is more about lifestyle than it is about, you know, what you're doing for your home. So putting that in. And again, to me, I put one in when my kids were little. And, of course, it's just an above ground at the time. I loved it. I mean, it really worked out well for our family for some time. So I say if that's what you want to do, girl, you make it happen.
Lord, no, I'm not paying that much money for
She's
it.
taking
I figured up like how much down payment I would have and how much I'd have to finance and what the payment, and I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm good.
But
I
I do. I mean, she would love it, and y'all would love it. You'd get more use out of it than you think
Oh,
you would.
I think we would use it
Absolutely. You
because,
would.
like, even now, as soon as it's warm enough,
Yeah.
she's all about, you know, blow my pool up, Mama.
Yeah.
I want to play in the pool. And if it's a real pool and not like a little kiddie pool, I'm going to have to be in the pool with her.
Absolutely.
Do you have room in your yard to put a pool?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we do.
I was thinking you probably.
And
did.
she's got city
I'm not
sewer.
paying to put a pool in. Do you know how much that costs?
Well,
You know I'm cheap.
Probably cheaper than buying a house. Just saying.
Well, that's true, too. But
You could put in that butler's
Right
pantry
now-
in that pool a little cheaper than the house.
right now, I'm looking at, I've got to start paying tuition for this little one to start school next
Oh, that's always
August.
fun.
So
Yeah.
she's going to All Saints and she's totally stoked. She says, I'm big now, Mama. I could go now to kindergarten. And I'm like, well, they won't let you
Why
go.
do we need to wait?
Yeah, she's ready to go.
Yeah.
She makes me drive by there all the time to show her where it's at.
My youngest
Oh.
she just started baseball and softball, so it's been interesting watching them run around circles to the opposite bases and.
Oh,
so-
kids t-ball and stuff like
Yeah.
that to me is freaking awesome.
I'm that
I
parent
love
yelling
it.
from the sideline, throw it to this person, or.
And the excitement, and then because nobody gets upset at a kid's game, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
Lord,
Except
no.
you do have
just
that.
laugh.
Like, you do have usually that one coach that's jumping up and down and screaming, and you're just like, no.
No, invariably you've got that one parent who thinks their kid is the next Michael Jordan or something.
At 3.
Yeah, and they're just, you know,
Yeah.
going off about whatever's happening.
Listen, I think t-ball again is one of the funnest things to go watch because those kids, if you just take it for what it is, the kids don't have a clue what's going on. You're just
Yeah.
watching them all scramble. It's a lot of
Mine's
fun.
been fun with Adrian with basketball. I'm like yelling from the sideline, take the ball, and she just slightly just reaches over and picks it up and just starts dribbling it. And I was like, okay, at least she listens pretty well. But I got a perfect video of it. It was just like slow motion, her just grabbing the ball.
That's hilarious. Well, talking about your kids starting into playing some ball and stuff, um, what kind of time management tips do you have?
So what I have started doing, in the beginning, I really struggled with time because I have, the bell bonding and stuff too. Um, so my kids have balls, say 5 o'clock or whatever. You've contacted me and been like, can you do a showing at this time? I'm kind of like I've allotted myself time like I'm going to the ball game. I make sure I do not miss a ball game. That is so important to me and about my kids that I make sure that they have to come first on that. So even if I have to take my kids and let them sit in the car while I do a showing and have, a teenager sit there with them or something, but I always make sure that I allot time in my schedule that this is what I have to do for this hour, 2 hours that I cannot reach out. And, sometimes I've lost, showings and stuff, but I'm up at midnight writing contracts sometimes, so it's just part of it. So, but that's what I've done. I've allotted time.
Yeah. Just
grind when I have to, and take time for the kids when I have to. So.
Well, to me, you've got to schedule that time, block it out on your calendar.
You and I just had this conversation a few minutes ago.
Just like you would any appointment. If I've got a doctor's appointment, then I'm putting that on my calendar because I know I can't take a client during that time. Once a month, I go to Sevier County and I get a deep tissue massage. That is on my calendar because you know what? I'm not missing my massage. That's my self-care. You know what I mean? So, to me, that's the best time management tip that I could give any agent is you've got to block out your personal time, your family time, just like you would an appointment with a client. And then you have to stay true to it.
Yes, you do. You gotta have time for you. And I think we've all learned that valuable lesson this past year.
Yeah. And I know when you get started, it's a lot harder to say no.
Yeah.
But then you reach the brink of burnout and you're like,
I gotta
say no. I gotta say no. And I always look at it as I'm not saying no to an opportunity, a specific I'm saying yes to something else. And I think that's how you have to look at it is, I got to say yes to myself. I got to say yes to doing what I need to do.
I still battle that for myself, and I still won't say no. I still try to rearrange it and be like, well, an hour later or whatever, I can do it. Matter of fact, the other day, I had a client that contacted me wanting to look at some land. So I thought, you know what? Let me see if one of these new agents, I know what it was like being a new agent. Let me see if they can show it or whatever. And I remember I reached out to 2 different agents, and both was like, I'm just not going to chase land. And I was thinking,
land keeps food on the table until you get a house.
You're going to struggle in this business because that's where a lot of your clientele starts, especially. Yeah. And a lot of people and I've noticed a lot of our new people are like, nope. And I'm like, probably not going to do so well in this because you're saying no. And when you're in new, you need to be pulling at the bit, yanking all the straws you can get.
But, that goes to the mentality of the agent. We got so many part-time agents coming into the business where it's like, oh, well, I'm a mom and, my kids are 2 and 3 or whatever it is. So, okay, so when do you show real estate? When do you work your real estate business?
Well, and I think a lot of folks don't look at land as the way they should. Again, land brings in quite a bit of money if you're really paying attention to it on one side, but it's also opportunities. And don't get me wrong, we've chased a lot of land. There are even times that we're tired of chasing land because we do it a lot, but we haven't. We've seen the value in that. And every opportunity is an opportunity. You don't know what can happen from that next. So just like I think we talked last night, I sold a lakefront lot to a lady 2 or 3 years ago who sent me a message last night and asked me about selling a cabin in Gatlinburg for her. So you better get your opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, it's like 3 weeks ago, I had a guy who I had shown land to. He was looking for lakefront lots. Well, he ended up buying a for sale by owner lot and built a house there, very nice house. But he reached out to me because he said, you took the time to come out and meet me and show me these lake lots, and you knew what you were talking about. And I told my wife that if we ever sell this house, you were going to be who I called to sell the house.
Right.
And I mean, it's going to be a $750,000 to $850,000 listing. So, yeah, those
Totally
$20,000 lots. Sometimes you feel like, okay, I made $500, big whoopee. Well, that's gas. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's building those relationships that can pay off later.
Absolutely.
Because those people may know somebody with a $500,000 house to sell.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I have one client that I started out showing them. It was a $25,000 lot, and ended up realizing, like we were speaking earlier, they realized how much it costed to build, and I ended up selling them a lake house later on, and it was one of yours, and it was like $750,000 lake house, which later me and Amy sold, and now I've sold him multiple properties since then, and still, I mean, it started out $25,000 little lot.
I've had them go the other way too, looking for $150,000 lots and then find a $25,000 one.
have
And
too.
you're like, man, I really wish you could have figured this out a long time ago.
Yeah, I have too, but
but I'm still great friends with those folks. They have a wonderful Lakeview house that they perked up there, and actually, when the lot beside theirs went for sale, I was the first person they called and said, hey, Michelle, we want this lot here too. And so I have no doubt that in Tennessee, when they get ready to sell that house, they're going to call me. You know, she still cheers for me and still roots for me. It was nonetheless, that it was time well spent.
Oh, yeah. For sure. All right. So have we had any difficult clients lately?
no, not at all. I'll just leave it at that.
A few
No.
here and there, but nothing to talk. Just different folks, and I think sometimes you find that sometimes clients don't want to do their buyer's due diligence. They want you to go do it for them sometimes, and I think that puts you in a rough position, because if you give them information that is incorrect, then you're accountable for that information that you gave them. And so
And are you trying to go outside your lane?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because we have them sign that disclaimer, but as soon as we go in somebody else's lane,
Exactly.
that's out the window.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I've not really had a whole lot of difficult clients lately, knock on wood, but I've had to deal with some agents recently that are just, it just makes me realize, the training that people get to become a realtor stinks, and they need to focus on things that, like, realtors need to know on an everyday basis. But it also tells me that there's brokers out here that don't train their agents at all.
Agreed.
Like, they come in and might buy them some business cards, and then they're out in the real world, and they don't understand the forms. They've never taken the time to look over the forms or to go to the forms class or anything like that. And they're not doing their agents any justice.
You know, speaking of that, I can go back to a specific one that you're talking about. So we did have a difficult client. Not necessarily, it wasn't our client. I was selling a house, but the buyer on the other side insisted that they were going to dig up this client's yard and get to the septic tank. So, said no, that's not the way it works. And of course, you had all the paperwork to show them the correct way to do things, but this still got argued all the way back to the broker who called our broker to see, and the broker's still trying to push and say, no, y'all gotta let him dig up the yard. Y'all gotta let him dig up the yard. No, we don't. But you were 100% right, because that went from a buyer's request to an agent's demand, and then back to a broker still trying to push to make that happen, when we put everything in front of them, showing them, no guys, that's not how this is done. We actually had to go in, pull the paperwork from the VA, from the information, send it back to them and say, Read
Yeah,
this.
because then they switched and tried to put it on. It was a lender requirement.
Oh yeah,
And I mean,
and we all said no.
I've done mortgages for 10 years before I got into real estate. They do not require, nobody, no loan product requires a septic to be dug up.
Right.
You know, if it's a government
Absolutely.
loan and it's on a well and a septic, then they want those tested and they want to make sure that they're, you know, so far apart. But yeah, I mean, and it goes back to the contract says it's a visual inspection.
Right.
We don't need to dig nothing up. So, and it's funny that, you know, it seems like the septic thing just keeps becoming an
More and
issue.
more
I had
of an
the
issue.
septic one on a buyer, but I kind of knew where we was at with it, but I still had to do my due diligence and just ask.
Well, I mean, and it's okay to ask, but it's not okay for you know, all the way up to a broker, for them to demand that my seller allow them to dig up the yard. I mean, do some digging, do some research. I mean, this
Not
is
literal digging.
This is how it right. I mean, this is how it went. I mean, went all the way to the brokers, and it just came down to the agent arguing about it and me saying, "Look, your answer's no. If you want to move it any further, you're welcome to have your broker call my broker, but your answer's no." And literally, that's what they did, and the broker took up the fight.
Yeah. But the thing of it is, out-of-state people moving in who are not familiar with septic tanks, they just get hung up on it for whatever reason.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just real simple. If you want the tank pumped, just write it in to special steps when you
Right.
write the offer. Seller to have tank pumped,
Right.
you know, however long before closing, and just go with it. Because I can promise you, if they come to empty the septic and there's an issue, they're going to tell the owner.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point now, he's going to have to
He has to disclose it.
fix it or
Fix it or
disclose
disclose
it.
it. Yeah.
So, yeah. It's just crazy. It's crazy the things that we have to get hung up on
Right.
just trying to do our job.
Very
Because
true.
that became, like you said, that became a calamity that it just didn't need to be. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, they were willing to die on that hill,
Yes.
and it was not that big a deal.
Right.
So, all right, ladies, that's all we've got time for today. So we will see you all back in another couple of weeks.
Bye.
Thank you. See ya.